Assalamualaikum, my name is Nurul Izzah and I am a student from LG 2401B, and in today's video I will be talking about sentence structure. There are 4 different types of sentence structure. But before we dive into those structures, first we need to know what is a sentence. Sentence is a set of words that is complete on itself. It typically contains a subject and a verb. A sentence can convey different meanings, such as a statement, a question, an exclamation, or a command. Here are some basic grammar rules that we need to follow and remember every time we write a sentence. In a sentence, the first letter of the word should always be capitalized. A sentence will always end with either a period, a question mark, an exclamation point, or a quotation marks. A sentence must also follow the subject-verb agreement, where if the subject is a singular, then the verb used should also be in a singular form. And if the subject is a plural, then the verb used need to be in plural too. Usually, in a sentence, the subject comes first and the verb comes second. If the sentence has an object in it, the object is placed at the end of the sentence. What are clauses? A clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. There are different types of clauses. A clauses can be a full sentence that conveys a meaning. But there is also a clause that needs other clauses to become a full sentence. Independent clause and dependent clause. Independent clause is a clause that makes sense on its own and can be a full sentence. Dependent clause or subordinate clause, however, is a clause that does not make sense on its own as a sentence and does not express a full thought. It needs other independent clauses to become a full sentence. As mentioned earlier, there are 4 different types of sentence structures. We have simple sentences, complex sentences, compound sentences, and compound complex sentences. We'll take a look at the first one, simple sentence. Similar to its name, simple sentences are indeed simple. It only contains one independent clause with a subject and its verb. Let's take a look at some examples. Gary kicked a ball. Gary is the subject in the sentence, the doer of the verb, and the verb here is kicked. Jack is reading a book. Jack is the subject and reading is the verb. Next is compound sentence. Compound sentence contains 2 independent clauses which are linked by coordinating conjunction. What are coordinating conjunction? Remember, when you hear coordinating conjunction, always think of fanboys, an acronym for and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. I want to watch a movie, but I have homework. Baking is really hard, but I really like to bake. These sentences can be separated into 2 independent clauses. In the first sentence, it can be separated into I want to watch a movie and I have a homework. They are linked with coordinating conjunction, but. Another example is Jack loves to walk, so Jack walks to school. Here are some rules that you need to remember when writing a compound sentence. When a coordinating conjunction joins 2 independent clauses, a comma is needed before the coordinating conjunction unless the sentences are very short. If coordinating conjunction is not used, a semicolon alone can be used to separate the clauses. The third sentence structure is the complex sentence. Complex sentences contain one independent clause and at least one or more dependent clauses. The dependent clauses are linked using subordinating conjunction or a relative pronoun. Here are some examples of complex sentence using subordinating conjunction. She will be hungry unless she eats now. The independent clause in this sentence is she will be hungry, and the dependent clause in this sentence is unless she eats now. The dependent clause can come before and after the independent clause. Let's take a look at some examples of those. Even though it was already full, we decided to ride the bus because it was raining. Here we can see the dependent clauses placed before and after the independent clause. Another example is when she was younger, she believed in Santa Claus. Remember, when a dependent clause comes before an independent clause, a comma is used to separate the clause. A comma is also used to separate the clauses as it shows extreme contrast between the clauses in certain sentences. Relative pronouns like who, whom, whose, which can also be used to link the clauses in complex sentences. The student who passed the test studied hard. My hat, which I usually wear, is nowhere to be found. The dependent clause adds more information about the main clause. Now that we know about compound sentences and complex sentences, we can proceed to make an even more interesting and longer sentence with compound complex. True to its name, compound complex sentence is a combination between compound and complex sentence. Compound complex sentence contain at least two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. The dependent clauses are linked with coordinating conjunction. Let's take a look at some examples. The baby was startled because of the thunder, so the baby started crying. Though I love to eat pizza, I ordered Chinese food instead, and I enjoyed it very much. We've come to the end of the video, but before we end, let's summarize the 4 sentence structures.
Simple sentence contains one independent clause. Complex sentence contains one independent clause and one or more dependent clause. And if the dependent clause comes first, a comma is used to separate the clause. Compound sentence contains two independent clauses linked by a coordinating conjunction. A comma or semicolon is placed between each clauses if needed. The compound complex sentence contains two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clause.
Those are the 4 different types of sentence structure. Knowing these different types of sentence structures are very important and very helpful for your writing. It helps reduces repetition and makes your writing more interesting and more engaging to the readers. That is all from me. Goodbye. Have a nice day.